This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Today on the podcast, I have a lecture from the famous physicist, Richard Feynman. He's talking about how a computer works. It's a filing system. True. I know you want it to be more complicated than that, but it's a filing system. Now, this lecture is fabulous because it brings you into the trend following mindset, which is let's engineer it. Let's write it down. Let's code it. Let's have a set of rules. Let's don't do what's going on in the modern world right now. Crypto going to hell in a handbasket, tech stocks blowing up, the Fed trying to fight inflation here in June 2022. No, that's just not the way to lead a life, to be attached to all of this insanity. You need a rule set. But to have a rule set, you need to understand how things work. And even if you're not a big techie person, even if you're not a big computer person, I promise you that what you're about to listen to is absolutely more important than anything you will hear from any of the big mouth prognosticators telling you about the assorted crashes in the markets happening right now. All that stuff looks great in the media, and it sounds great, and it generates eyeballs, and everyone wants to pay attention. But the lecture that I'm about to play you from Richard Feynman, the famous physicist, no longer with us, a brilliant mind, is more important. It's 1,000,000 times more important. And if you don't understand that, okay, you'll just keep losing money. I get it. That's okay. It might take you a lot more money to lose before you get to the point that you can understand that this Richard Feynman lecture about computers, about heuristics, is solid gold. Without any further delay, actually, you know what? Let me give one further delay. Would you like to know why trend followers are making a bloody fortune in 2022? Send me an email, michael@covel.com. I'll tell you exactly how. I'll show you exactly how. Drop me that email, michael@covel.com. And now, without any further delay, let's jump right into Richard Feynman. And again, you know what? You can send me an email after you watch this and tell me how important it was to you. Or you can send me an email and tell me you got nothing from it. Because I'll at least post that email and say, well, this person's batshit crazy. So you got all kinds of options with me today. I better stop all this pausing. I hope you enjoy Richard Feynman.
Okay, what I want to tell you about is computers, because they have computers all over the place and everybody's talking about them and using them and are frightened by them, or else you find them very great assistants and so forth. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about how they work, what's inside them, what the idea is, what the mechanism is, so that you can get a better idea from that of what you can expect them to do and not be able to do, and so on. So that's what we're doing. We will expose what a computer really is. Actually, the first aspect is, you see, there are many different kinds of computers. There are computers that you can put the data in by talking to it even. There are computers you have to type the data in. There are computers that get that data from the machinery of an automobile or something and compute how much they should shift the gears so they have an automatic transmission, but I mean controlled by an automatic computer instead of you feeling how fast you're going and what the hill height strength is. That's called the input part of the computer. That is, the information's coming from different kinds of sources. A keyboard, a telephone, sensors inside the automobile that measure temperature or acceleration or something like that. And there's another aspect called output. For example, the thing that goes out might be the control of the gasoline in the automobile. It might be to make pictures on a TV screen that you can read or look at. It might be that it makes music and makes sounds and so forth. Now, the part that's the input and the output, which makes computers look different, is not the part I'm talking about. There is in between the input and the output. The input is converted to some electrical form, then something's done in the computer, and it spits out another electrical signal, which is used for the output. So, for instance, in the automobile thing, the various sensors are sending electrical signals to a box, which is the computer proper, or the part of the computer that I'm going to talk about. And then in the output of this box is other electrical signals which go to control magnets or something, which turn on and off the gasoline, or else control magnets which push in and out a diaphragm very rapidly and make sounds, or controls the electrical currents running in the beam that's going all the time on the screen and makes a picture on the screen, and so on. So what we're going to talk about, which is really the computer proper, is the part in the middle. So it's sort of, we don't care where the stuff comes from, we don't care where it's going out. Now, what is the stuff in the middle? That's what's really manufactured in the computer. Of course, a real computer that's sold is advertised and is good because it's got a big screen, or it's got a small screen, or it's got a tiny keyboard that your fingers are too big to push the buttons, or it's got a big keyboard that has so many buttons on it you can't figure out which one to push. And they have advantages and disadvantages, which is not what we're talking about. We're talking about what's on the inside, the central part of the computer proper, which I'm going to call it the computer proper. But the whole computer, of course, is the real thing. So, but we're just talking about the guts in the middle, the thinking part, if you like to imagine that computers think. But what is it? I'd like to compare it to a filing system. As a matter of fact, I'll anticipate the end. A computer is a high-class, super-speed, nice, streamlined filing system. And I'm going to start out with an ordinary, old-fashioned business filing system, and to tell you ways that you can change it and improve it and so forth until it becomes a computer. One of the miseries of life is that everybody names things a little bit wrong. And so it makes everything a little harder to understand in the world than it would be if it were named differently. Computer does not primarily compute in the sense of doing arithmetic. Strange. Although they call them computers, that's not what they primarily do. They primarily are filing systems. People in the computer business say they're not really computers, they're data handlers. All right, that's nice. Data handlers would be a better name because it gives a better idea of the idea of a filing system. There's a lot of data on cards, and you handle it. You take cards out, look at them, put them back, and so on. So that's what the computer does, and I'm going to describe first an old-fashioned filing system, and then we'll talk about how it's improved, or how it might be improved, okay? Actually, it's improved to the point of being made automatic and mechanical, electrical, actually, and that's our computer. And an old-fashioned filing system is something that many of you are perhaps even unfortunately familiar with. It's a whole lot of boxes, drawers, cards, and things, you know, which all have stuff, numbers, and facts on them. For example, in a business which has lots of salesmen, it may be that each salesman has a card. He has his name on it and his address, what his general salary is, what his commission rate is, how much he sold last month, and where he lives, things like that, let's suppose. And it's written on lots of cards because there's lots of salesmen in the boxes. And then the problem for a file clerk might be, for example, a boss comes in and says, would you figure out, oh, the commission rate is given on the card, like a certain percentage, and how much he sold during the month. But now you have to figure out how much we have to pay him. So what you do is you take out a card, and you look at how much he sold that month, and you look at his commission rate, and you multiply the two numbers, and you write it on the card and put it back, and do this on card after card, okay? What does it mean? You're taking a card, then you're looking at some things and doing something to them, that is looking at some data on the card. The easiest way to think of it, to simplify it just a little bit, is that we have scrap paper that we can erase and use again and use again. So we take and rewrite the numbers off the card the amounts before. So when we're doing the multiplication, we can do it with the numbers without dirtying up the card. So we copy the numbers over and then do the calculation, see the answer, and if the rule is to put the result back on this man's card, okay, so we write it on this card. It may be that we would like to put this on some other card, maybe cards about expenses that have to be paid or something, you see? So you'd put that somewhere else. Or perhaps, to make another example, that you would like to add together all, well, I'll forget that. You want to add together all the money to know how much you're going to have to pay out. That's another example. But they're all the same, of course, that you take the numbers from the cards and write them down and recalculate and put it back in the numbers. So you have three kinds of operations. Taking cards from places, looking at information on the card, doing something to the information on the card, writing things on the card and putting the cards back. Okay? Actually, it could be a little bit simpler. You could say you take the thing out and take the information off the card, immediately put the card back. Just save it. Now you do the calculation, and when you get the answer, you pull a particular card out that what you want to put the answer on. It may be the same man's card, but wherever you want to put the answer, you take it out, write it down, and put it back. Okay? So we have two operations: picking up a particular card, getting data off of it, doing something to it, and then putting numbers onto cards from our scrap paper on different cards. And that's all that the file clerk does. To take another example, suppose we have figured out all the amount of money that we owe each salesman, and we would like to know how much to draw out of the bank in total. So we need the total amount of all the sales. Then we could do that by having a special card called the total card and writing 0 on there. And this is a way of I'm talking about the details of what we have to do. Everybody knows what to do. You tell the file clerk to add the numbers, but this is what you might do, or he. Write 0 on this particular thing called total sales costs in California, and do the following. Then you take the first salesman card, you look, he's not from California. We want the total amount of money we have to spend in California salesmen, all right? Just as an example. So you put that one back. Take the next card. Is it from California? No, put it back. Next card, from California, yes. Then the next instruction is to look at how much money you owe this man and write that by adding to what's on the total card. You take the number that's on the total card and the number that's on this man's card, add them together, and write that back onto the total card, right? You're keeping the total running, see? So the next time when you take another card that has a number on it, you take the new total that you just cooked up from before. There was no trouble last time. You had to add 0, but this time it's getting harder. You add it on and put the sum back on the total card. So you see you got a kind of a steady thing. And when you're all done going through all the file, the total has been changed and changed and changed and changed, and the last thing you read is the real total of all the numbers. Okay? That's what the file clerk might do in that situation. And now we're going to try to improve the filing system, to improve it. You see, we have to have a fairly intelligent file clerk, a file clerk that can multiply and add and so on, read cards, get instructions from the boss and remember what they are, naturally, and know how to do all these things. Has to know where to go to run up and down and pick the cards out of the boxes, and has to read the place to find the cards and know where they are, and so on. It's a lot of stuff. Well, another one comes along. We got a new file clerk. I got a new file clerk for you. Say to Elizabeth, 5 times faster than the old one. Oh, well, we'll hire him. But you discover suddenly that he doesn't know how to do multiplication. Well, how in the hell is he going to handle finding the commissions by multiplication? This guy isn't any good. But he's 5 times faster, so it's very tempting. If we can only get him to be able to multiply. So what do? You send him to school? Too much wasted time. Better idea. You teach him you tell him how to multiply as follows. After all, he's very fast at picking up cards and putting them down. So he takes the cards and he looks at, say, 2 numbers. And you tell him to look at the last end of the number. One's an 8 and one's a 7. Right? Then that instruction will look at card number 78 in the multiplication file. And when card number 78 in the multiplication says 56. The multiplication table, which we worked so hard to learn in school, is easy to put on a set of cards. On each card, which is labeled by a number, let's say the card number 78 or 78. the card label. I don't have to convert it to a number. A card called multiply 7, 8. Answer 16. There's written on a card. So all he has to do is pick up the right card. He's very good at that, and he's very fast, see? So he sees the 7, 8, take the card, 56, okay? And so it goes. He doesn't have to know how to multiply. You tell him a series of instructions, what to do exactly. You give him the instructions as to which cards to look for at what time. So when you say multiply, you don't even tell him that. You tell him, look in this box now, take that card out and write down what that one says, and so on. So you see that we can describe multiplication as a definite procedure, a precise procedure of handling numbers in a kind of a dumb way. And things that would have to be memorized are never a problem. Memorization is no problem. That's what a filing system is for. That's what cards are for. We write everything on the cards. Every damn thing you've learned with all this effort is written on a card. So with cards, we can make this fast filing clerk actually able to multiply. Of course, it's slower to have to look up each time in the multiplication table because he has no memory worth a damn for numbers, this guy. So he can't even remember that he's used the 7 times 8 55 times, but he still has to look it up again. So he's slower in the sense of the number of operations to multiply than the original file clerk was. But he's really faster because altogether he handles the cards so much faster that in spite of the fact that if there's a lot of multiplication problems, he isn't 5 times faster than the other clerk, but he might be 2 times faster because he's slowed up in the process of multiplication. So our filing clerk does not have to know how to multiply. Well, we'll get a faster one. I got another one that's 10 times faster than the last one. He can't add. No problem, right? I mean, we have an adding table too, right? No problem. Okay, he's easy. He's better. He can't add, he can't multiply, can't handle numbers at all. But he can compare, read, and check that what it says on the cards is the same. He doesn't even know that these are numbers. He sees this shape and compares it to this shape and takes the cards out according to the instructions, okay? Now, where does he get his instructions? They're in a series of cards that says, do this, then do this, then do this, you see. So we have a sequence of cards with instructions on them. He doesn't even have to remember the instructions. He's rather stupid. The first filing clerk, you could say, go get the card. That instruction meant go into room 5, open the drawer, push your fingers through the card, lift, and so forth, okay? So if you want to get the card to read it and then carry it back and write it down, you could have a list of instructions for this idiot. Instead of saying get the card, you say, look in these set of instructions, please. First instruction, walk over to the file. Second, pull out the drawer. And so forth. So all he has to do is keep track of which instruction comes after which. He's really quite stupid, but man, is he fast. Dumber, but faster. Okay, the key of it all is dumber, but faster. Right? And so what we're having is filing systems with ever-increasing speed of the file clerk, but ever stupider file clerks. Okay? And they're getting better at system because we must file everything. Now, the last fellow that we've got in this, not the last one, but the next to the last one, is unable to remember which instruction he's on. Well, what's the next instruction? Oh, but he can add 1. He knows how to change something with 1. He has a little counter that he pushes a button and it goes up 1, okay? So all he has to remember is the following. Push the button on there's a little register that he can read, okay? It's a push, that we call it the program counter or instruction count, all right? Push the button that changes the instruction count by 1. That's the only button he knows how to push. Push that, okay? That's the first instruction. Read the number there on the program counter and take that card out, that instruction number out. Okay? And that says, go get this paper or transfer this or whatever it is, you see? Because we have already put all the instructions in a certain order. And then put the card back, you're finished. Take out, read the instruction, and do the instruction, and put the card back, okay? Then the next cycle he has, push the button on the program counter, read the program counter. It's the next number, you know. But he couldn't remember, so he has it there. It's the next card. Takes the next card out, and it tells him what to do next, and so on, okay? So he doesn't even have to remember where he's at, as long as he's got this one little gadget inside, which I'm beginning to think you could see could be done mechanically. That is, we can make a device that all you push a button and the number changes by 1, right? In fact, so that's almost got it, but we find a very much faster, 10 times faster than this marvel, who is so stupid, but so fantastically fast, which is 10 times faster than this fellow, but he can't read letters. He doesn't know what they mean, doesn't know what the numbers mean, okay? So how is he going to, what can he do? If he can't read anything, he can't do anything. I grant you that. I grant you that, right? But he can distinguish 2 signs, one from the other, which we'll call high and low, you know, or black and white, or 1 and 0, or mark and no mark, whatever. All right, just he only can read not any kind of letter, but just one little spot. It's let's say we always make it red and blue. You see, is it red or is it blue? So we make a lot of spots for him, red, blue spots. It's all he can read. What an idiot! How can we make him do anything? How can he know what an A is? Suppose we got letters. We want to write the letters for names or something like that. So we would like to instruct him in the letters for the names, you see. So instead of saying, we tell him which, first better, to give a better example. By this time, because they have to use so many cards and so many files, the files have gotten larger, right? There are lots of filing cabinets in many rooms all over, and this poor fool has to be able to find the right cabinet. Now, previously, we labeled all the cabinets with the names of the sections from schmaltz to zoology and so forth here, and this is in box 34, and this is all over. It's like that places in Esalen have numbers on them and so forth. I'll show you how we could do that without having, only with red and blue dots on the rooms for those particular kind of workshop people who cannot read numbers, all right? And we'll still be able to do it, and I'll show you how we'll do it. Let's do it with the Esalen rooms. It just makes it more interesting. I don't propose this as a practical device, but perhaps it is. And it goes as follows. You take the map, and you divide the rooms through the middle and say, these are the first level red and blue rooms, okay? Now you take the red rooms and divide them in half. Let's say those are the higher part of the hill and the lower part, and say they are secondary red or blue. And the blue ones, the main blue ones, have been divided into primary and secondary rooms, like this. You know? I see that I don't have red and blue, so I'll use brown and orange. It's perfectly all right. Had I said brown and orange, it would be all right. They understand that it could be any 2 colors. Okay, so let's first draw, what, in yellow? A lot of rooms. Can't see the rooms, okay? I don't have enough things. So these are the rooms. We'll be all right. Let's say we had this many rooms. I've got them all laid out in a straight line, but it doesn't make any difference where they are on the map, right? We got 8 rooms. I know you got more rooms than 8 rooms, but you'll see the scheme will work just as well for any number of rooms. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark all these rooms with a black dot as a first dot. I mean a brown one, all right? And these will get orange dots, okay? Now, of the brown dotted rooms, we think of the brown dotted rooms and we look at the next dot, which says the first half of them get brown on that dot, and the second half of those get orange, all right? And then the first half of these get brown, and the second half gets orange. Oh, you say, well, still you're so clear. Okay, now you look at the brown rooms, huh? Any pair, there's a brown, the brown-orange rooms, the orange-brown rooms, and the orange-orange rooms. Of the brown rooms, we label this side ones brown as the first. Each pair gets the front end brown, and the other one gets orange. And lo and behold, we got 8 rooms, and with 3 little dots, each of which can only have one of 2 colors, we can identify the room. So The guy who has to locate himself and who can't read numbers but can read whether a dot is brown or orange will, in this system, be very easy to find his unique room. In fact, it's easy to find the room, which is different, of course, as you already know the numbers on these rooms around here do not locate the rooms, right? But this new system, we can locate the room. The first brown tells us to kind of go over here somewhere. The next brown, swap more. Is it orange? Take that side. So the filing cabinets can be very large and have labels on them, which are like these brown dots and orange dots, but because instead of being 8, there are, say, 1,000 such rooms, it turns out you only need 10 dots to do it. 1,000,000 such rooms, there's only 20 dots. Because there's so many different combinations of brown, orange, brown, for 20 long. So many ways in 1,000,000 different ways. So you'd have, that way you can label a large number of different cabinets and have a file clerk, which you can only read, just one of 2 alternatives and make sense of it. And so we can do it with rooms and also with the letters of the alphabet. Because we take the letters of the alphabet and write them along and label them. The letters on this side of the alphabet are the brown letters, first primary brown, and the others are orange, and of those you make brown. So these could have been A, B, C, D, E, F, you know. So we could teach him a different way to write his alphabet. He's so dopey. He could only read these, but we smart enough to convert it. So he can be, therefore, using names and numbers, but they're written in a different code. It's like the dot-dash system of Morse, only slightly more organized. We call it ones and zeros. Brown and orange, I'm calling it. Whatever. You can only read 2 possible things, okay? So the new file clerk can only make out one of 2 alternatives at any particular spot. Of course, he has to realize he's due first the first one, and then he's up to the second one. So he first makes one choice, and then the next choice, and next choice, and according with this, and then determines the letter of the alphabet. If he has to talk to us and make an output, he's not going to be able to just put his ones and zeros. We're not going to be able to read it. So suppose he wants to say something, and he wants to put an output. You ask him for the name of the best-selling, the guy who sold the most in California, and he does it with his dots, and I'll tell you a little more about how you do that. And comes out, his name starts with an A, say, or let's say it starts with a C. Huh? Where's the C? For him, it's 3 dots and a dash, right? But he wants to print C for you. What can you do? He wanted to see it look like a C. You know? So what we have done for him is we imagine he's going to write this on some kind of a screen that we have divided into squares, okay? Like this. I should make more. And we tell him whether to mark the square or not in the electronic device with a pulse so it lights up on the screen or not, by whether it's a brown or an orange dot there. So we put a brown dot here. Well, let me first draw the C. The C is going to look like this is where the orange dots go. Okay, there's a C, all right? Not a very good C, but it's a C. If you had more dots and a finer screen, it would make a much better C. So we put all these browns and so on, and then we put into a filing cabinet, under the labeling for the 3rd letter of the alphabet, this pattern. So when he's not working internally, which is, you can use this other system, but wants to communicate with us, we've told him how to do it. What we get for a C, by putting in the filing cabinet the list of dots that he's supposed to put out on the screen. So when he's finished looking at, we look at the little white dots and black areas, we see a shape of a C. So the hardest thing he has is communicating with us, getting the information, converting it to dots, and getting the dots back to the form that we're used to. The same thing can be done with numbers, of course. Suppose that he had only deal with numbers from 1 to 1,020, 0 to 1,023. It's a happy case where you can divide. 10 times you can divide those in half. You say a number is described by the same bunch of dots by taking the top half of the numbers or the bottom half of the numbers. I already did it with numbers. It was the numbers on the rooms. So we can use these dots and so forth to represent numbers the same way. And now we can use a particularly stupid a file clerk, and it's only useful, of course, if he's really very fast, because everything requires him to looking in his damn files all the time because he knows so little. And that's what ultimately has been developed. First of all, in order to get up speed, instead of having to get up and walk over to the file, we put the files not on cards, but on little tape decks, little tape decks, electrical. And we send the signal, turn on the tape deck and listen to the signal that comes out. We don't have to run over there. We've got a telephone, so to speak. We tell which one to go off, and it sends back what's on that tape. So you see that we can file things not on pencil and paper, but with electrical signals or magnetic, different kinds of techniques there are for electrically saving information. And it turns out you can do that smaller and smaller until the filing cabinet is this big, which contains millions of items. And what you're doing is you're signaling to the different filing cabinets. Depending upon the ones and zeros, there are switches inside that tells which one it goes to. And the information comes in and out electrically. That's much faster than carrying cards around and running around in sneakers. And so that's the way that's done. And by the time we got a file clerk this stupid, we can do it mechanically. We can tell whether two dots are the same. For instance, we can ask him, when the two look the same, do this. So if there's two brown ones or two orange ones, do this. Now, it's rather easy to make mechanical devices which will do things like that. For example, instead of brown and orange dots, you could have electrical voltages, which are either up or down. There's current on or there isn't. So instead of a dot of different colors, we just have a voltage or no voltage on a particular wire at a given moment. Or if you would like, but this isn't the way the electrical one is the way it's done. But if you would prefer, you could imagine you made a hydraulic computer with pipes, with pressure, with water going through. And if you look at the pipe and water's squirting out, that's a black dot. And if there's no water there, that's the other kind. So it's rather easy. So you make the pipes go squirt, squirt, not squirt. Squirt, squirt, not squirt. That's it. This one is this room. Right? Now what we need is a situation to compare things that only squirts if two things. Let's suppose we're looking for both dots be brown. Only then should you make a brown dot. In other words, two pipes such that if both pipes have water in them, then only then should water come out the other one. Well, we need only a valve operated by water. You have a pipe like this with a valve, which is a thing you don't turn it on, let the water through. The water's trying to go through here. It's turned off by a faucet, which only takes a small turn and has sticking out above it, instead of an ordinary handle, a flat vein, okay, that we're going to squirt with water, and that's going to push the vein around and open the valve. So here is the things coming in with the water to operate that. So when the water goes here, it turns the water on there. Now, if I put two such valves in succession in the pipe, okay, and I had the water coming in these two different pipes, then it would only work, that is, water will only come out of here if both of these pipes are squirting. Because if I got only one pipe squirting and the other not, this valve is off, but this on, so water don't get through on account of that's in the way. And vice versa, okay? So this is what you call an and. You get result here when both this and that are on, then you get that on. You can do an or just as well, where you get a result if either one is on, but that's different kind of a logic. And the way to do that is simple enough, is to arrange the pipes so that the water that's coming in is split into two possible pipes. Let me see how I draw this. Yes. Well, the brown and the orange is just an accident of fate of having put the orange cap on the brown gadget. So we'll straighten that out right now. And here we go. The pipes go like this. The input is here. But we go with the two valves this way. Here's the one with the other valve. Okay? And the two squirters. Let's say this one squirts here and this one squirts here. You got to get some geometry. It's 3 dimensions. You got to get this pipe on top of this pipe or there'll be trouble. Anyway, the idea is that these then come together, and you might ask, under what circumstances does water come out of there? Well, clearly, if either this is open or that's open, it either goes around this way or it goes around this way, or both. That's an or. You get junk out only when one or the other or both is on. And so we can say very simple comparisons of these black these dots, or better, ones and zeros, or pressure, water and no water, or electricity and no electricity, voltage or no voltage, electrons or no electrons. And so we can make the device simple enough now that we don't need a human being anymore to do the file work, and the whole system is now a computer. It's all done electrically, and it has this kind of switches in it. Electrical valves are called transistors, and how they work in detail, how the electrons come in here affect the electrons going there, I won't describe. But just granting that a transistor is the analog of a valve, but for electric current, then you're going to understand that large numbers of transistors, lots of these valves making comparisons, switching where the current goes to find the right filing place in the box where all the stuff is filed and so forth, would constitute a computer, and that all a computer does is what a filing cabinet system can do. It can do everything that most things that an ordinary file clerk system can do. It can multiply numbers because we store the numbers. We store the combinations. It can add. It can do all these things, even though it can hardly do anything. And you might ask, is there some kind of design of computers that can do more than other kinds of computers? And the answer is no. It turns out, once you begin to understand this, that if you try to add more complicated things, you can always put them back in filing systems and use the same system to do a more elaborate thing. So all the computers can do the same things, but maybe they take longer, or it may be a matter of efficiency, but they can all do the same things. They're all universal inside, if they're big enough. There are limitations of how big is your filing system. Maybe there's not enough room for all the cards you want to put in, and things like that. But that's the only differences between the different machines. At any rate, that is supposed to be an expose of what the heck's inside the machine. Now let's ask what such a machine could do. First of all, the same machinery can be used for more than one problem by just having different instructions. Lists of instructions, what to do this, then that, to do that, to deep. And another problem, you do something entirely different. This might have been a business with salesmen and so on, and now you want to do oil company reports and listings of what they discover when they drill, all right? So all new numbers, all new instructions of how to handle numbers, everything. What do? Buy another filing system. It's more expensive to do that than to do the following. Throw away all the cards from the business company. Wait a minute. Suppose you want to come back and, all right. Take everything that's on the cards of the business company and make photocopies and store them in the basement. Now erase all the cards. So if you want to come back, we'll come back. Then you go down the basement from the time last year when you were doing the oil company problem and pick up from the photocopies all the stuff that was supposed to be on the cards for oil business. And then just fill up all the cards with the oil company's job, with the instructions for oil companies, and our dumb file clerk is now an oil company file system, okay? Because he's got new instructions. And these things that in the basement, the analogy that I want to make is that those things are dead, not operating, and are just stored. They're not easy to get at. It's hard to get down to the basement. It takes a long time to pull them up and set them in all those cards. But you do that just once in a while when you want to change a problem. When you've got them all in, then you can rapidly take them and put them in, compare them, and do this like the filing clerk is supposed to do. So we have cassette tapes or hard disks or floppy disks or various and sundry different ways of taking a large numbers of instructions out and sticking them on the disk and leaving them there, putting them in your back pocket, throwing them around in boxes while the computer's doing something else. Then if you want to change your computer to a word processor instead of a game or whatever it is, then you just take out one disk, put the other disk in, puts new stuff into the computer, all new instructions, dumb file clerk working like a son of a bitch, and a big memory outside. And that's why computers can do so many things, apparently. The same computer. It doesn't do so many things. It always does the same thing. It follows instructions. And the instructions are very dumb and at a low level. Okay, that's the end of the expose, but I would like to make some remarks and some things about, because people like to think of things more than just how does it work. They would like to know what's the future. Why can't we improve this? Look what we've got now. We have this enormous memory with lots of data all around, which is sort of sitting there. And this one little section where something's happening, which I called the file clerk before, which is the systems, which go and get something, pull it in here, do something over here, put it there. Then you take something else and put it here and put it there, put it there. Put it there. So this poor file clerk is working perpetually with a tremendous rate of speed, going practically crazy. He does, in fact, I just estimated something like 10 million times faster than an ordinary file clerk. That's 10 times faster 7 times. If you know what I mean, 10 times, 10 times, 10 times 10. That's damn fast. And that's the electrical things are that fast. And but he's working very hard. But the rest of the system, which is the memory, and you've heard they made now memories with 256K bytes. K just means 1,024, so they mean 256 times 1,024, 8 dot word symbols. In one tiny chip, okay? It's a lot, and you put several chips in, you've got a terrific computer. Except for the guy, the file clerk, which is called the central processor, who has to look at this program counter and check and change it and look at the next instruction and going, all right? And he's working very hard. So an obvious way to improve the thing is to get another file clerk. Why not have an army of file clerks? Turns out at first that it looked extremely difficult to do that because there's all kinds of technical difficult problems. Suppose that one guy has taken a number out and he's getting ready to change it. He's going to do something and then change the number. The man just sold something. He wants to change it and then put it back. And while he's doing that, the other file clerk is taking the card. He doesn't know whether it's before or after the first file clerk has changed the number. And it's very important to know that because he's going to use that number there. So there has to be a certain amount of organization among the file clerks. And don't forget, they're kind of dumb. So the organization must also be fairly dumb. And it has turned out for many years it was a belief that it was difficult or almost impossible to easily arrange a system with many file clerks. It always turned out to be easier to make one file clerk work very hard than to make several working because of all the, what you might call, bugs and difficulties that come from them all using the same information and changing it on each other and so on and organizing that. The part of laying out the instructions is called the programming. And a programmer works out how to put what instructions to write. The machinery, the wires, the memory, and the boxes where they put the cards, but in our analogy, and the little processor in the middle with all the little switches, is called the hardware. So it always turned out that with a little more clever software, which means clever programs, this single file clerk could do what the others would do because the others were confounded by the problem of interference. But recently it's been shown that it was a misunderstanding, and with clever new ways of analyzing the thing, we have now figured out how to make things run with numbers of file clerks. There's 2 different general systems. There's one system it has something, a reasonable number like 64 or 128 file clerks all working on the same, similar. They work on almost separate parts of the memory. That's the way it's organized. And only once in a while exchange information. So they're not doing anything to each other's cards. They're each working in separate sections. And there's also a machine called a connection machine, which has 64,000 processors in it, which is a sort of a leap into the wild blue yonder at a time when they were trying to do it with 2 processors. And if the 64,000 processors could all be made to work at the same time, it'll be 64,000 times faster than it was before, just like that, because they're all working them together. The only problem is to organize the problem and the program so that you can do the job in a way that does use 64,000 guys at the same time. It turns out that it's not as hard as it looked at first, and that's a thing for the future. I'm talking about the future. They're building such a machine, and they're learning how to program it. That is, how to arrange the 64,000 processors, which, by the way, are each, in fact, somewhat stupider than the programmers that I was talking about before, because they can't even read the code for their instructions. But I mean, they know its instructions. Read what's in that file place. That means go over, switch this, switch that, go over, get the file, open the drawer, close it, and so forth. They can't even read that, so that they have to be instructed on the go. And so there's another machine on the outside that instructs them all what to do. But it has to tell them all, because, see, they all have to do the same thing at the same time. Because the instructions go to everybody. Do this, and they all do it. But if they all do it, you're going to be in a great difficulty if they all do exactly the same thing. And the only opportunity they have, the only thing that you can do that's different is that you can instruct, or they can keep a little memory thing that says, don't pay attention to this instruction. In other words, you can get some to do something and the others to do nothing. The next time you wanted them to do something, if you wanted one to do one thing and one to do another, you have to do it in 2 steps. Do this, you stay put. Do this, you stay put. And so on, okay? And so on. So it's rather interesting because in trying to manage the 64,000, they all have to be much simpler, and all the time it gets simpler, it gets sort of slower. But the question is whether we gain from the 64,000, what we lose from the slowness, and it depends. We'll learn by experience. That's the future. Finally, I would like to just say some words about what the computers can do. And you'll see they can do only what you would be expected to be able to do with a filing system and a reasonable file clerk. I'll explain an example of an unreasonably good file clerk later that's better than one that we can make with machinery. Okay? So far, we seem to have been able to imitate any file clerk, real file clerk with machinery, but I'll mention a few cases that we don't know how to do that. What we need to do, of course, is to get a definite procedure to convert what you want the clerk to do into an absolutely definite procedure. Every step is precisely defined in this stupid way, exactly. And if you can do that, then you can get the system to work. Now, will the system think? If you could define exactly a definite procedure, tell somebody exactly how to think, which, by the way, is what the members of my workshop have expected me to do for them. To tell them exactly, step by step, what to do to think. If I could do that, I could do it for a computer, and I wouldn't have, they could get the computer to think. But nobody knows what we do or how to define a series of steps which correspond to something abstract like thinking. But nevertheless, we could make machines which play chess, which was supposed to be something that takes thinking. And what exactly do they do? What definite procedure could you make with a big file system, very fast operating gadget, by which the thing could be used to play chess? Never mind the input and output, the information of where the pieces on the chessboard are converted into numbers or dots and so forth, ones and zeros they're called, inside the machine, and then it proceeds. So never mind the translation. The idea is, in a given position, which is a whole lot of information, that's where it is, you want to know which way to move. So you say, well, there are many ways I could move. You look at the rules for how to move. The knight goes this way, the queen goes this way, so on. And you just list all the different ways it could move. And you see all the new possible positions. Then you say, in each one of those, which way could the other guy move? It's getting pretty big, isn't it? But they're big machines, and they got lots of storage space. So what's the next move? And if he does that, what can I do? And you just check every one of the positions after, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6 half moves. These are called half moves. One side moves, the other side moves. And see which of the final positions you're better off. And better off might be some little rule like you haven't been in check. You haven't had your king lost. That means you're not dead. And you've got more pieces than the other guy. Okay? So you look down 6 steps down to see which move is the best to make, where you got the best possible outcome. And you make that move. Then your opponent makes a move. Then you start again, this time going down 6 again. Of course, you're going deeper now because the game has proceeded a little bit further. And that's all there is to it. What the machines do is just a tremendous amount of trying different positions. A human being doesn't. The human being tries about 35 positions as far as we can tell. When he's in a position, he tries about 35 looks at different moves before he makes a decision. Whereas the machine makes something like 35 million positions to check. That doesn't make the machine better than the other guy. We don't understand how we do it. We cannot give a direct procedure for this. The man does it by recognizing a pattern. Oh, this knight can fork the the king and queen or something. So if it goes here, so I have to watch out about that square. He sees patterns. At least he describes it that way. We really don't know how it works. And this business of the describing patterns and so forth is something that we haven't been able to put into a precise form. When he says it looks, I just see that it's a good idea to try this, and I tried it. We don't know how he does that. So we can't make it play like a human plays, but we can make it play better than almost all humans. Machines, computing machines, have been used, for instance, for designing machinery or designing something, in particular designing a computing machine, for instance, or something like that. In a computing machine, you have to have the different elements, the memory and so on, in different locations with wires in such a way that the wire lengths are shortest so that the time is quickest, and the parts that are being used most are closest to where you want to use them and things like that. And so you try to figure where should you lay them out on this chip of silicon. And it has been quite a problem of design. We have engineers that work very hard at designing these things and working these things out. And all we do in the computer now is to try large numbers of possible arrangements. We just give it an instruction, put this here, then this, and how much wire do you need? Now put here, how much wire, and then pick the one out which has the biggest, more ones. The biggest, or the lowest, the best quality, whatever it is you do to measure how good this particular design is, like the amount of time and the amount of that it takes to do a calculation, or how much silicon you use, or something like that. So we can select from a very large numbers of alternatives, the best alternative. Ordinarily, a person doing that doesn't waste his time with obviously useless alternatives. But we do not know how to put too well that idea of the obviously useless. If we try to make too sharp the rule that it's useless, we miss sometimes a good opportunity that would have been a good thing. So that's as far as we can go with that. You've probably heard that machines have been used to be almost like doctors, expert systems which can diagnose disease. Now, how can a damn file clerk? Well, it's easy, isn't it? How would you diagnose disease? You write down all the symptoms, and then you'd like to have a book that you could look up that says, here's all the symptoms, and this is what you have. And in the complicated cases, you list all the symptoms, and in there it says it's either cholera morbus of the borbus, or it's bacteremia, or whatever it is, you see. However, you can tell the difference by looking with ultraviolet light up the nostril, all right? But ordinarily, you don't bother to look with ultraviolet light at the nostril, so you don't know the answer to that. So the thing comes back and says, look with ultraviolet under the nostril and tell me whether it gets through or not. Say yes, okay, it's bacteremia. So this filing system contains all this stuff, plus the incomplete decisions that require more information. And it's been arranged so that when it comes to a place that's incomplete, it simply sends back and says, make the following test and tell me the result. The thing doesn't work as well as a real doctor. But anyway, you get some idea of how machines can be doctors, how machines can be chess players, and how machines can be designers of equipment or layouts for businesses or whatever, or routing for trucks, and so on. But just trying all kinds of routings and seeing which is the best. That's all there is to it. It's a filing system, and anything that you can put in a filing system and think of how a big filing system could do it, especially things that you just have to remember a lot of stuff or try out a lot of possibilities, those things can be done with a machine.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.